Today's guest is Elle George, author, founder, surfer, and all-round force of nature. Elle's new book, Before You Shake Hands, is the ultimate playbook for founders, investors, and CEOs who want to avoid the number one reason partnerships crash and burn: misalignment. In this episode, you'll learn the battle-tested questions Elle wishes she'd asked before nearly 2 decades of legal and emotional fallout, why alignment is more important than traction, and how to protect yourself from the kind of mistakes that send 80% of partnerships straight to the courtroom. If you're a founder thinking about a co-founder, a partner, or an investor, this conversation is for you. Big stories, big lessons, and big heart. Let's go. But first, some business. The Founder Challenge is brought to you by Kitcaster. You know that guesting on podcasts is one of the fastest way to grow your brand, your audience, and your revenue. But who has time to pitch shows, manage the bookings, and prep for interviews? That's where Kitcaster comes in. We've booked over 30,000 interviews for more than 800 clients, from scrappy startups to Fortune 500 brands. If you're a founder, we put you in the conversations that matter most, so your story reaches thousands of the right ears at the right time. Ready to grow with the mic? Head over to kitcaster.com and apply to be a guest today. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Okay, everyone loves to talk about vision, the pitch, the funding round, but you know what gets zero love? The actual product build. That magical, terrifying phase where nothing works, the docs are out of date, and you've asked your dev team, how's it going, for the 47th time today on Slack. That's where Code Story comes in. It's a podcast for startup founders who know that building the thing is the thing. Hosted by Noah Labhart, Code Story goes deep with tech leaders who've been through it, shipping real products, surviving messy launches, and figuring out what actually works and when you're on the edge of chaos. If you're building now or ever plan to, you'll want these stories in your earballs. Search Code Story wherever you get your podcasts or visit codestory.co, because founders talk vision, but builders tell code stories. Unbelievable. Elle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I wish I was there. I know you're in an undisclosed location, but it looks extraordinary.
Well, I tried to hide my background, like I said to you, but I've got sun hats above me because I live on a very remote island in Indonesia, which I love.
Incredible. And we're going to get into that, but I want to lead off the conversation with your forthcoming book called Before You Shake Hands. Will you just give us the premise for the book and then maybe a little bit of history about yourself, how you came to write it?
Sure. Before You Shake Hands is a book, I suppose, in the entirety is about alignment. It's pretty much the ultimate playbook for CEOs, founders, investors, people thinking about going into partnerships. And it's got all the critical questions that you really need to ask. The crux of it is across 5 different scenarios, I guess, from values and trust to roles and responsibilities, legals, financials, and then exit strategies. And it's very much, I guess, when we go into business partnerships or consider them, we're excited to be chosen as a partner or someone who's a founder with a business. It's like dating, right? We're excited to be chosen, and we then push aside a lot of the questions or the things that we should be asking in business with alignment. And it's the most crucial part of the puzzle. And without them, that's when you crash and burn, really crash and burn. So this book was very much a battle story. It was my battle story. And I wrote it for the purpose of, part of it was therapeutic, and part of it was being able to help people out there. I realized when I was in that situation, there was nothing. There was nothing to help you along to know what to ask. If, back in the day, there was nothing. And this was a long time ago. This is nearly 20 years ago now that this happened. And it strung out for nearly 2 decades. So that's the reason that I wrote the book. It's what it's about. I've had some amazing feedback on it, and I'm really, really excited to get it out there because I feel like if it can just help one person or one founder or one investor make that alignment decision, and it would, it's done its job. So I'm really excited about that. I came from a very corporate background to begin with. I left home very, very young. I had the wind in my sails and knew that adventure was for me. So I was very much traveling and always wanted to be a founder and have my own business. But corporate and life happened and had kids and all of those sort of things that you do, and went down the corporate path, worked for Coca-Cola for many years, and then went across to a company that was then bought out by the Sara Lee Corporation, and I stayed on with them, which was in cosmetics. Pharmaceuticals. I've done so many things in my life. And I think that's kind of part of the puzzle, that I was just willing to do anything, and no job was beneath me to get to where I needed to get my goal. And when I went into a partnership, I was in that position. I wanted to be chosen. I was excited about what we had, and I didn't do any alignment checks. And I think now and back then you have to remember, we didn't have Instagram. We didn't have everyone YouTubing and all these tools online that you can get for free now to be able to help you do these things. But back then, 20 years ago, we didn't have any of that. So you were just kind of muddling your way through yourself. And I think that's a really important point now, is there is so much available to people out there now to have the tools and find the tools that they need. But there's really nothing like this book out there, and I've been told that by many CEOs and many founders already, that they're really thrilled that this is out here now.
Yeah. No, it really speaks to me, because honestly, this is the stuff that you have to learn the hard way, unfortunately. I've been basically doing startups or whatever since I was a teenager, but having serious partnerships multiple times and with varying success. And it gets really hard. Now, the Sam Altman is calling this right now the time of the idea person, because you can take an idea and enact it almost immediately. So people are linking up and you have this momentum, you get early traction, you got customers, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is awesome. It's like, should we do all this like backside preparing? No, that'll ruin the vibe. But anyone who's feeling that momentum, they need to stop, and maybe the chapter they should go to is, what do we do when we hate each other and we're in some standoff? You have to start. In the book. Because God forbid that happens, and it doesn't always happen. And hopefully the person you're choosing, it's like, hey, we know it's going to get hard. Every business has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if we're in the end together, we have to have the trust that we can work stuff out. But if we can't, we need to have it documented somewhere of what the next steps are. Now, some people have to learn that the hard way, but thanks to your book, now they do not. You can have the uncomfortable conversation. You can break the mood. You might take a week. It might be one conversation to get to 3 conversations before you really hash it out. But that's why I'm excited about this book, because it's going to put the opportunity in a lot of people's hands to save a lot of heartache in the end.
Absolutely. And you know what, Ryan? Over 80% of partnerships fail. Every single courtroom in every city, in every country in the world is full from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. with people fighting about money. And, in the book, there's so many of those questions. And here's the thing. If you're going to sit down with a prospective partner or, an investor or, as a founder, you want to be able to put it to them, not like, oh, hi, can we sit down? I'm going to give you the Spanish Inquisition. We want to sit down with them and say, hey, before we go into this, I think it's really important that we make sure that we're aligned and our goals are aligned. For example, if somebody's coming in for, someone might be coming in to park some money for a taxation purpose. And, I've got social issues. I want to become a B Corp. And I'm super excited about social cause and things like that. Clearly, straight away, there's no alignment. So you can move on and start looking for another investor or another partner. There's things that you just said about, what if we don't even like each other, which you don't know? How do you know unless you ask what their goals are? First question is, why do you want to invest in my business? And straight away, that's going to flush people out. They're going to tell you straight away, pretty much they're investing in you, or for whatever the reason that there is. And that brings out the alignment immediately. And in the book, there's so many questions about exactly as what you said in your experience of, what happens if one of us goes through something in life, or one of us has some huge financial battle, or what happens if we need more money? Who's going to put it in? And what does that look like? And what is the share breakdown? having all of these things documented within an agreement before you shake hands, before you sign on the dotted line, make sure there's an alignment. And then you can proceed knowing that you've done your own due diligence, not just facts and figures. This is a full alignment check to make sure that, it's like speed dating for business, basically.
So true. It's so true. And it's going to get squirrely, especially if you're successful,
Yeah.
and understanding some of these things. Now, I'll walk through a couple of case studies. I've done it enough on the partnership side that I could always use more resources, but I kind of know some red flags to look out for. But more and more, I'm finding myself in positions to invest in other people's companies. And oftentimes these are younger founders, not necessarily by age, but just maybe by experience. As an investor, what's an important kind of perspective or question or conversation I should be having with prospective founders to see if it's like a good idea to invest with them?
Well, certainly the immediate question is, what are their goals for the company? Because you want to know what their end game is at the start. You want to know if a founder says to you, I want an exit strategy in 5 years, that might not be your plan. So that is the first question that I would be asking is, what are their goals for the business? Is the most crucial one, because then you can decide as an investor, well, what is my plan for my money? Right? And that's a very quick alignment check on what you can do. And also asking them the questions of, what is a time in business so far that you've found a real challenge in the business, the biggest challenge that you've had in the business, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah.
And that will really bring out their personality.
It's a good one, particularly because me personally, I have this cognitive bias that is, I always feel like I'm the last one to know anything. I'm like, oh gosh, it's so embarrassing. I just figured this out. I just assume that everybody already knows everything I know and already wants the exact same things with me. And so but it's not true at all. So a lot of times there's assumptions I'm making of like, oh, of course we're going to, we're going to raise a round. We're going to sell this company in a couple of years. And, like I make certain assumptions based on basically what I think. And I don't think it's uncommon, but to figure it out, I mean, that's a very 101 kind of question. What do you want? But maybe one that gets glossed over a large time because everyone wants to have boat drinks in Tahiti with Elle or wherever she is. We're going to use this interview to find out where she is. But yeah, some people don't. Some people want a lifestyle business. They're like, well, I'm passionate about this project and this is something I want to pass down to my kids. Well, that makes it very different for a prospective investor or partner.
Exactly. And you know what? You're not alone. We all make assumptions. We all paint this picture and tell us this story, our own story in our heads of how things are. And so you're definitely not alone in that. I think and this is a really interesting point, we make assumptions that people would behave in business and have the same goals that we do and are aligned with us. But more importantly, on the preface that with that they would behave in the same way that we would. And this is what the alignment checks bring out. Because when you do go into things like confrontation and those sort of things, it's interesting to hear people's responses. So sometimes if somebody focuses on a particular area, like for me, I'm ride or die. I am loyalty, to a fault. I'm the person that my friends call that'll bring the rug. I'll bring the shovel and ask me how deep, right? We'll have a conversation later. So loyalty is very important to me, as is trust. But when some people ask questions about how you show up and what they need, that really defines something on how they are. It normally brings up some trauma or a past experience that defines who they are now. And that is how they make their assumptions. So in your head, you're making assumptions about, how things are going to roll and how things are going to end. Whereas for someone else, they're proceeding cautiously on how they're showing up. So that's why the alignment checks are great, because it allows you both to meet in the middle and have the very clear conversations on, is it a legacy play? Is it an exit strategy? How does that work? How do we deal with conflict? How do we get to a final decision? What if we disagree? Who flips the coin? Like how do we break the tie break? All of those sorts of things are so important.
Yeah, well, and you're definitely going to disagree, and there's definitely going to be conflict. And
Absolutely.
in the beginning, when it's all rosy, you're like, I don't want to think about that. But really, you should. And you should push the point and find out what's really important to you. Largely, maybe to expose a little bit of conflict to see how you do when you're in conflict with the person. Because it just
Absolutely.
might be that, like, the way that they behave in tough situations is incompatible and you're definitely going to get there. So it's better to kind of root it out in the beginning. Is that kind of the idea?
Absolutely. And you know what? If people aren't willing to sit and have this conversation at the start, and it's almost like a checklist, and you can explain it to them, it's really important to me to do this alignment check to make sure for both of us that we are aligned. If somebody says to you, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing that, red flag, run, don't walk, get out of there, abort mission, next. Because if someone's not willing to have those conversations and communicate at such an early pivotal stage of your relationship, it's like dating and asking somebody if they want to have kids or not. It's a deal breaker straight away. It's like, swipe however they swipe these days. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, where can people go to pick up the book?
It launches for pre-order in a couple of weeks, so in September, but it'll be online in Amazon and hopefully in a lot of bookstores.
Fantastic. And we'll link it in the show notes. So if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this on the podcast, you can find the link in the show notes. Super exciting. So
Awesome.
I love this idea, and it's so important. If I were you and I was in the Tonga island chain, I would be thinking about my next.
Yes, salmon, to say the least. So okay.
Yeah. I would be thinking about my next move. You have you're an extraordinary accomplished entrepreneur and you've got a lot of things going for you next. Talk to me right now, for you personally, what does an ideal partnership look like as like a co-founder and then maybe an investor that would come and enter your building?
I guess my alignment is I definitely lead from my heart now. I'm very intuitive. And I think it would be someone that was more spiritual. I know this sounds a bit woo-woo. However, my businesses are very much heart-led now. If it doesn't feel good, I don't do it. I come up with business ideas all the time and I always put a toe in and then I'll reverse engineer it and see how that looks and how it feels and do the numbers. And if it just doesn't feel good, even if I've put in maybe a week or 2 weeks work, I'll bail on it. I'll just say no, move on next. And so being aligned with someone, if I was to do a partner, which I wouldn't, but if I was, it would be very much someone who was able to have those gentle conversations and just real communication. That's it's more of a friendship and more having fun in business. I don't want to do the tough, hard, it's money, because money doesn't get me out of bed anymore. I'm okay, I'm good. And I do things now for passion and for love and excitement and the thrill of the chase. I don't do it for money. So if somebody's coming in and they want to, we've got to do this and we want an exit strategy, I'm not your girl. You know what I mean? So that's a big one for me.
Well, let's put the beacon out there. I love that you're talking about spirituality. I've described myself as a Buddhist entrepreneur and argued with some Buddhist abbots about, they told me I couldn't be that. And I was like, that's your story, buddy.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what spiritual practice is important to you. I mean, when you're sitting there in, Malaysia or Brunei, what does spiritual practice look like for you?
I think for me, I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's actually called the Master Key System by Charles Hanal. And that's the movie The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, when that came out. And there's a part in there where she says, my daughter gave me this book, which, opened her eyes. And that was the whole premise for The Secret. It was actually the Master Key System by Charles Hanal. And I did that a long time ago and I redo it every time I finish it. And it's a 26-week program about manifestation. And every single thing I have in my life now is from manifesting. And so people say, oh, it doesn't exist. And, it's not about things. It's about having discipline. So people think that manifesting is just putting a list and doing a Pinterest board and putting it on your fridge and that's amazing. But if you don't put it into orbit and you don't put the things in place to allow you to achieve those things, it's never going to happen. So for me, part of those practices aren't just meditating, which I do every morning. I go and sit out in my egg chair somewhere in an island somewhere in the world, and I go and sit out right on the beach. I literally have sand under my feet every morning, and I walk out to the ocean, do an ocean check, do a surf check in the morning, what the tide's doing, and then I sit in my chair and I meditate. And the first thing I do before I do that is I have some affirmations that I do to myself on what I am. I wrote a big list of how I would like to self-talk to myself subconsciously. I am beautiful. I am talented. I am thoughtful. I am kind. And I wrote a story to myself, and then I recorded it in my own voice so that I play that at night before I go to sleep, because there is no sound that's absorbed by yourself, no podcast you can listen to that's absorbed greater than your own voice. So I listen to it at night in the morning, and then I do my meditation practice. And then I do breath work, and surfing's kind of my meditation as well. I do that. I surf every day, which I love, and to make sure that these old bones can keep moving. But I'm very much the principles of, and I do appreciate a lot. I appreciate a lot of Buddhism. I think, there's so many practices within that. Even things like, Deepak Chopra and stuff, things like that, is listening to a lot of, I love the sound of his voice. I love the way he explains things. I love the way he shows up. There's so many spirituality practices, but actual practices of how I lead my day are based on, I don't gossip. I'm happy to, when people come into a room and gossip, I stop them and I'll say, look, maybe we can give that person some grace and let's wait till we're in the room to maybe discuss it. I don't gossip. I want to be the person in the room, or when I'm not there, when people say, you know what, I've never heard her speak a bad word about anybody, and nobody says a bad word about her. So I'm very conscious in how I show up. And if I've got something to say, I'll say it to your face. And trust me, if I need to say it, I will. But I'm happy to have those hard conversations with people, but with kindness and with love. And I do that in business. And my businesses that I have, my hospitality businesses, I have just been built on true passion and love for the staff on everything we do, right through COVID when we built. We could have closed. We could have, left the country and gone to my homeland to be safe. And we didn't. We fought it out and we were paid off in spades, which was amazing.
I love that. And exhibiting kindness and compassion in the workplace is something I really work on. That's where I look for traction. It can be challenging. When you're betrayed by your staff that you're treating with love, what do you do?
I love that when the staff say that. One of the biggest things so many people come into, I have a chain of restaurants, and so many people come into the restaurants and try and poach my staff. And I used to get so angry. I'm like, how dare they come in here and sit here and be romancing my staff and things. And now I just giggle, and it's such a compliment now, because I think, you know what, my staff are so great that you want to poach them. But they come and tell me, and the staff come and say, oh, this person said that, and I said, what did you say? And I told them, no, I've been here for so long now, and I love my boss and I love what we do and things like that. And that fills my heart, because sometimes people will come and say, I've had staff in Asian countries, when somebody offers you a $1,000 sign-on bonus, that's a lot of money, to them. And when they say no to that and they turn down money for love, that just fills my heart. And last year I was actually, we have a family day every year where we close all the businesses for a day. We just shut everything down. And then we all go and do something fun. And there's, we've got over 300 staff in the restaurants. And it was amazing last year, because it was the first year we didn't do it during COVID, and because it was, it was all hands on deck. But it was amazing last year that we went and did this, and I surprised myself because we gave out all the certificates for length of service. And when you consider the percentages in hospitality turnover, and when we had so many staff that had been with us for 5 years, it's crazy. And we do wonderful things in the business, like, we pay birthday bonuses, we give loyalty bonuses. So every year that they're with us, they get extra money on top of their salary, and we do special things for them throughout the year, and random prizes to, keep them excited and things. So it's amazing. I just love it. And I I love it when I get back and I go back into the businesses from the island, and I go back and I walk in the door and they're like, oh, and then, there's hugs all around and the customers are all looking at us. It's like mama's come home, and I love that. It fills my heart.
Incredible. I love it. But the challenging part of leading with a big heart is your heart gets broken and people
It
do let
does
you
again
down.
and
How do you
again.
deal with that? How do you deal
It
with
actually
a
got broken yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yesterday. It did. It got broken yesterday. There was a young guy. He was my chief baker. He makes all of our bread. And I remember the day he showed up, and I had advertised, it was 5 years ago in COVID, and we advertised for this job and for a chief baker. And this kid showed up, like a kid. He would have been, 22 at the time. And he said, I haven't been in the head baker job before, but I worked for this big French chef, and I think I could do it. And I said, what are your salary expectations? And he said, I don't have any, but can I have a space in your kitchen for a day and let me show you what I can do? And if I can do that, then you decide what to pay me. I'm like, you know what? You're my guy. And it was just to make sure he already had the job right then and there. And I love that. And so he's been with me for 5 years. And in that time, he's had a lot of life challenges that have gone on, and we've worked through them together. And there's been a couple of, bumps in the road. And then yesterday he actually resigned. And we've grown so big within that business that he sent a message and just said, I think it's time. I don't think that I'm ready for that type of role, and I want to go and get more experience in a bigger bakery company. And it truly broke my heart. But what broke my heart more is that he went to HR first and he didn't come to me. That was more it, because I felt in that mama mode, I felt like you've gone to get therapy from someone else rather than me. So that was yesterday, and that was really tough. But that said, I can't begrudge someone who wants to leave and go and grow.
Sure.
And the fact that they don't just walk out the door and they don't just, that you do hear it from them first it's a testament to how much they've grown and how much you've taught them, is by that they're going to grow and be with it, go and get, going to go to Japan, for example, and learn their ways, or going to go to France and do this. And great, good for them. I'm happy for them. I'll be their first customer.
Yeah, because Japan's not too far from Sumatra, is it?
Yeah, it's not a short flight away.
Maybe I'm not alone, but I've always wanted to write a book. Talk to me about the writing process. When did you find time to write? What tools did you use to write, and kind of how that went for you? Hey, everybody, you know what's crazy? I've been sitting on a gold mine this entire time, and I didn't even know it. My Gmail inbox, literally thousands of warm contacts who already know and trust me. But here's the problem every founder faces. How do you turn those relationships into revenue without feeling like a sleazy salesperson? That's exactly why I've been using WarmStart.ai. And honestly, it's been a game changer for my business. This AI platform connects your email, analyzes all your existing contacts, and helps you identify who in your network might actually be interested in what you're doing. Then it writes personalized outreach messages that don't sound robotic or pushy. The best part, you review every single message before it goes out. No spray and pray nonsense. This is relationship-based selling done right. My listeners know I only recommend tools I actually use, and WarmStart has literally helped me reconnect with people I'd lost touch with and turn those conversations into real business opportunities. If you're a founder struggling with outreach, check out WarmStart.ai and use code AIFF to get $50 off your first month. Trust me, your existing network is worth way more than you think. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product-market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, MoBurst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.
Yeah, I always think everyone's got a book in them. You hear that all the time. Everybody does have a book in them. I've actually written two. And I'm one of those people that I go, and a lot of founders are, I think, to be an entrepreneur, you go, 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 go. And then you have these moments of pause where you pull back and you really need space and time to think. And so during that time, I think the reason I wrote it and the time I made for it, it was, like I said to you before, it was a bit of therapy. Yeah. So to me, it was kind of coming to the end of that 2-decade legal battle that we had. It was just insane. It was, a third of, nearly half my life. And so a lot of it was therapy. And I remember, sitting in court and thinking, oh, why didn't I ask that? Why didn't I think of that? And I was writing all these notes, and I happened to read back through my diary or my notebook that I wrote from a lot of the court dates throughout. And, I was like, just sitting there in court was thinking to myself, oh my God, that was a red flag. How did I not see that? That was a red flag. And so I'd started to make all these notes, and I picked it up by accident one day. And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she said, you know what, that'd make a great book. You need to write a book about this one day. And I was on the island one day, and I'd come in from a surf, and I was sitting there pondering it, and I got some great news about the court case, and it was all winding up and what have you. And I was like, you know what, it's time. And it just started flowing. And the first part of the book is me not going into the nitty-gritty details because it's very boring and it would take 10 books to write what happened, but just an overview of how easy it is to get to this point if you're not aligned, and how quick it went. Hostile takeovers, setting up Phoenix companies, moving assets. It was mind-boggling for people to try and come in and swipe something out. And I think the first part of the book is that. And then I just started listing my questions. So the way the book flows is they're the important questions under each category. And then it's followed by an entire page of each question of why it's important. Why is it important that you need to ask that question? And it goes through all of my experience of why that question's so important. And there was a lot of research that went into, because, I'm not the guru of, and I don't claim to be on alignment and things like that. So there was a lot of research that I did through the internet, through different people's stories, through government business sites, startup things of different governments have, where they have, things for founders on what they tell you to do. And some of it's nuts. It doesn't even, I think it's bizarre, some of the things that they offer. It doesn't align or work towards alignment and partnerships at all. So that was pretty much how it came about. And then it just flowed after that. I really built the framework of the 5 stages first, of the 5 categories, and then it just sort of started rolling out. It was great.
Amazing.
I really, very therapeutic.
Yeah. Is it part autobiographical? Are you telling stories?
Yeah, well, a lot of the why is it important are my own experience, because the why it's important is, like I said before, about what is someone's intention in your business. Like, why do you want to invest? Are you investing in me, or are you investing in the idea, or are you investing because you want a tax write-off, or what is it? It's those things are, and the why it's important there is because in my situation, and I won't go into all the details, but had I asked those questions, obviously I wouldn't be in this situation, or I wouldn't have been in that situation, but I would have worked out that alignment very quickly. And one of the questions that you really need to ask people is, actually 2 of the questions that you need to ask people that are really important is, have you had any financial issues in the past? And have you had any financial or legal battles in the past? And how did you navigate those? And what did you learn from that? Because to go into business and think that somebody's never been to court, never had a credit issue, never had thing is naive, because we're all human. We've all had, we all grew up younger. Some people have had problems with credit cards. Some people have had, maybe been in my situation. It doesn't make me a bad bet in business. It just means that I've been through a legal battle. How people handle things in life, I don't want to know about the nitty-gritty of what happened in your court case. I want to know about how you picked yourself up and how you got back out there, and how you did crash and burn, and did you crawl up and sit in the fetal position for, curl up in the fetal position for 3 months? And then how did you get back out there to have the business that you need investment for now? That's more important alignment question for me. So it was more talking about those things on why it's important. You need to know how people show up in business and how people behave in those certain scenarios so you can assess whether or not they're going to be your ride or die. Because look how much time we spend in business, right? We spend more time in business than we do with our own families. So you want to make sure that the person that you're spending it with and the person that you're on that journey, and you're going to the celebrations and you're going to ride the high waves, and you're going to be in the pit together in the heaviness of failure, that you can ride it out together, and that they have the emotional maturity and capability to do so.
Love that. It's instinctive to kind of like shield ourselves from, or shield the world to our own insecurities and to our failures. But honestly, it is kind of a red flag, right? If people haven't, have some scars, if you've been through the ringer with whatever it is, raising money, taxes, staff, legal issues, if you've never hit that, then like, how equipped are you really to go into the unknown, particularly with like a certain amount of optimism?
100%. And I don't want to go into business with anybody who doesn't have battle scars, because then they don't know what it means to fight their way out. They don't know what it means to fail and have to pick yourself up and have nothing. I mean, there was one point I was left with $161 in my bank account.
Yeah.
And, and I had to rebuild, and I had a family, and I was like, whoa, this just got really real. And many people have been in my situation. I'm not alone. So it's like, what do you do in those? What did you do? I don't want to know, that's what you had and how you put, but how did you get back up? How did you fight? How did you get out of the doldrums and build, what you've got today? That's what I want to know.
It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. I will read this book with a different perspective, but I think for new founders, it's going to be really eye-opening. I think there's people watch Shark Tank and they think about, they got $1 million idea and like, one day I'm going to go do it. And, I've met a lot of people over the years who will bury their head in the sand and work on a project for years without telling anybody, largely because they don't want to break this bubble of whatever their expectation is, and, if it's a hobby, that's great. But like, if someone can actually be real with themselves to be like, hey man, am I really, I like your words, am I ride or die on this? Because you must be ride or die. Otherwise you will definitely die.
100%. And what you just said then about Shark Tank is so interesting, because it's exactly what I said about wanting to be chosen. So there's a panel of people that are sitting there listening to your idea, and then you're sitting up there selling this idea, so excited that I'm going to be chosen. They throw money at you and then you pick. It's literally like speed dating. There's no question. So when they say, they're asking you questions. My question, if I was a contestant on that show or whatever they call them, is being asked, turning around and asking each investor, what do you bring to the table? What are you aligned? These are my principles and this is what I need. What are your alignments? What have you been through? Tell me your story. I know that they don't have enough time for that on television because doesn't make good TV. But I wouldn't be going on one of those shows and saying, let's speed date and I'm going to jump, because that person, yes, they're a celebrity and yes, they've got lots of money to bring to the table, but you as people might not be aligned.
Yeah.
And that's more important than anything. We've got to get on. If you've got the personality of an indoor plant, you and I aren't going to make good partners. Right? It's just, so if someone's like that and they're very quiet and they're very let's have these, that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's whoop it up out there. Let's have fun while we're doing it and grab the bull by the horns. I'm, not a little wallflower. So if that was someone's personality, straight away, there's no alignment. I
love it. Yeah. I'm a bit gregarious myself.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the lightning round? Speaking of gregarious.
Oh, sure.
Great. Let's do it. This is the founder challenge question, brought to you by kitcaster.com. If you want to take the challenge yourself, you can go to media.kitcaster.com/founder-challenge, which we'll put in the show notes. Now, you have 4 different categories to choose from here, Elle. You have scandalous, tough, or philosophical.
I'm going to go scandalous.
You got it. And that was only three. The other one was explosive. I don't know why I didn't read the other one.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. Explosive. I'm going to go explosive.
Explosive. Okay, let's
Can I
go.
go scandalously explosive? Let's go.
Okay. Oh, this is very appropriate. What's the pettiest reason you've ever said no to a deal?
It was a physical thing. And I know that sounds bad, but it was a body language thing. It's not really petty. It was critical for me, but it was a body language thing. Um, where this guy kept going,
He was
kept
picking
going,
his nose?
he was not picking his nose, but he was just, when he was talking, it was kind of like a, and
Like a,
I can't do it. I kind of got the giggles. I was like, this whole thing, it was like, is there something, do you need some tweezers? Do you need some tweezers? Or was it, so I know, and that's probably not what you want to hear, but it was just, I couldn't sit and listen in a board. I couldn't deal with that in business for the next 5 years. It was like, how are you? I'm great. How are you?
well,
Yes.
I mean, it could be a drug thing too. You never know. I mean, you got to trust your gut sometimes,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe you'd had a big night out. I'm not sure, but that's probably the pettiest reason. It was a silly reason, I guess, because maybe you just had the flu or something. I don't know, but it was a body language. It's random. I'm like, that's kind of
Oh
crazy.
man,
Bit of tissue.
we're two
Yeah,
peas in a pod because I tell you what, vibe check is very important,
yeah, it is.
Like you gotta, there has to be an attraction. I mean, if you're looking at a partner, obviously it's a platonic professional attraction, but it has to be there, right? At some capacity.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like dating where, and they say it's interesting for men in relationships, they say that they make a decision within point two of a second or something, whether there's a vibe there or a connection or chemistry. And same for women, we take a bit longer, but it's no different than building a business relationship to have that alignment and to have that vibe. You have to be able to bounce with somebody and have that, that banter. And because that's what builds excitement in a business. And whether it's it might be a VC, a big investment fund, or it might be just an investor, you still want to be able to have that laughter and the fun. I mean, everything I do, I laugh. I had one of the young local kids in some place in Indonesia said to me yesterday, actually out in the surf, he goes, Ibu, which means old lady, but Ibu, are you always happy? And I said, yeah, I am. Why? He goes, oh, this makes me smile. And I said, well, that makes me happier. And I am. And I always show up. I'd start my day with happiness. I end it with happiness. And I'm always happy. And of course, when things go down, you have stress, you have things that you've got to, but you can decide whether you're going to spiral throughout the day or, you can decide to be happy. And I think that's really important when we meet people, that connection of, do they make me feel good? And there's someone recently that sort of surrounded themselves. And when you're a really happy person, people are drawn to you. It's quite magnetic and people are drawn to you. So people come in your orbit sometimes and I feel the energy. So
Yeah.
if there's someone that comes into my space and that energy's off, I really listen to it. And I'm not rude. I'm not, I'm very nice and very polite, but I just slowly slip away and I make sure I remove myself from the situation because it just feels off. And if that's your first intuition and you've led with your heart and that's what you first brought up, it's your gut never lies. Your gut never lies in any situation. So if it feels great, then it's great. If it feels ick at the start, it's going to feel like that long term.
It's so true. It's kind of like there's a mean here, on the far end of the spectrum, and this is very rare. But yeah, you get people that are like, they got some kind of psychopathic energy with like hamster eyes and like there's no connection there. And you're like, dude, I don't know what's going on with that person, but it seems like they have bodies buried underneath their driveway or something. I got to get out of here.
Exactly.
That happens every once in a while. But what'll happen more times than not is you'll be like, you kind of meet somebody, you're like, I don't know. But then they have this really compelling product. You're like, wow, that's really cool. Then they have this incredible revenue per employee. You're like, whoa. You look at the P&L, you're like, boy, this looks really good. And then you start to gaslight yourself to ignore your gut intuition and those red flags. I think that maybe something that comes from people that are a little more seasoned, that like so much comes from your gut and be like, the numbers look great, but not for me. It's like there's something here that I don't know what it is. Your hand's always on your face. And so for that reason, I'm out. you know?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes don't jump too quickly to make decisions about people or judge people either. So give people some time, because sometimes when people have got battle scars, they're a little bit more guarded. And sometimes you might look at someone and say, gee, that person's a hard nut to crack. You know, I've met someone recently and I'm like, I don't get that guy. I just can't work him out yet. And actually yesterday I was walking back along where I live. I was walking back along and all of a sudden he completely opened up. So, you know, we've got to know each other probably over the last 8 months. And I keep thinking this guy's an anomaly. Like, it's so bizarre. He's just very close. But I think when you just slowly with people have obviously got their own traumas and their own battle scars and wounds and things that they've brought into life. And so don't jump too quickly on making assumptions about people. And like you said, gaslighting situations, because sometimes people have been through a lot. Like, I don't trust quickly because of what I've been through. I don't just jump in and, you know, I make sure that I've do my own little personal due diligence checks in friendships as well, because I am ride or die. And I show up with, I had someone say to me lately, you know, you're too much. You love too hard. And it literally made me laugh, because I thought, how closed off, how terrible. I love too much. Think about that. I love too much. And I show up in my friendships. I tell my friends I love them. You know, whenever we talk, we always sign off with I love you. And I think showing up in business is the same way. You have to be able to share and to have those feelings about people that you're in. You know, you've got your whole life plan invested in someone. You have to feel love for people, you know, and that's where it kind of starts and ends with me.
Amazing. So, you know, through the process of writing the book in Flores or Borneo, perhaps,
Have you been Googling while we're talking? Your geography?
was there, I'm doing my best here. I don't know the area, obviously.
Yeah.
But what was something you discovered through the process of writing the book that was novel?
About the novel, or that was novel?
About the book, and then maybe about yourself, but something about actually writing the book that was new.
For me personally, what it brought up for me was some of my own attachment styles of how I react in certain situations. And I actually grew from writing it. I grew because I think when we're younger, we have all of these traumas that we carry with us in life, in relationships, business relationships, personal relationships. And I realized that I brought a lot of those into my business side of things. And one of those is feeling, I'm one of 6 sisters. And I think for my dad, you think he would have got the hint by that. I ended up being like the son. And I was always, you know, there was always a new favorite. So I came through life always feeling like I had to fight for attention and love. So that's how I have, sometimes I'm a secure attachment, which gives me my confidence, but I'm also an anxious, which means I get caught in my head sometimes about, I already have the whole conversation of how somebody else is feeling or thinking without even asking them. I get the narrative in my head. So writing the book really brought those things out for me when I looked back at ways that I could have behaved, because there's always 2 sides to the story, and someone, you know, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? And hindsight's 20/20. So, you know, looking back to those scenarios as I was reading those questions and seeing those red flags, it was bringing things up for me on who I am as a person and why I behaved or reacted in that sort of way when that thing came up. And I think that's really important. Self-reflection and doing the inner work is not just great for us in showing up for ourselves and being able to, you know, function as an emotionally mature human being in both our personal relationships, but so important in business that you're willing to do the work. And there was part of me as I was writing the book that I was actually really proud of myself on how much I've grown from those experiences. But also, you know, there was a couple of areas where I'm still stuck, where I'm still stuck in certain areas where I've now done the work and really focused and honed in on those things to identify what they were. And one of them is trust on what they are. And I can't just say, well, you know, Ryan, I'm automatically not going to trust you from the get-go because I've been through this thing in my life. That's not acceptable. You know, so I now give my trust willingly. It's up to you to keep it or lose it. Right? Now, I would never have said that before. Before the guard was up, I was like, focused on almost trying to find out how you were going to screw me over. And that was a real weakness that I had. And I think a lot of people have that. But if you can sort of lean back for a moment and then self-reflect and do that work and really identify what it is, I think you show up as a far greater leader and as a person for both your friends, but more importantly, business and yourself. You know that you've done the work, you've put in the work, and it feels great. It feels great to know that you're not charred and, the battle scars are minimized, if you like.
Such a beautiful insight, and I think one of the things that a company's doing great things or really striving, really trying, really having ambition, really wanting to do something and leave a mark is that it's going to hurt. And, over time, like the hurt can build up. And for me personally, like looking at the next 100 years, we'll call it, I don't want to become old, embittered, and cynical, and that just comes from counting all those L's. But from the same perspective, you can count all the wins. Sometimes it's easier to remember the hard places than the good times.
It is. And you know what? You need to move through it. Like the people that I went through the partnership split, I have nothing but love for them. I literally, which sounds crazy because they, it was a royal screw over. Yeah. But over the years, I could have become so bitter and angry and sought revenge and, had ways to get them back. But why? For what purpose? It only is going to eat me up and chew me up and spit me out. So I made the decision then a long time ago that this didn't feel good feeling this way. And I need to get back to that place of centeredness. And the way, to do that, I literally, when I say love, it doesn't mean I want to go out and have dinner with them and have a kumbaya moment with them. It just means that love in a way that I have meditated on it many times is I wish them in their lives that whatever made them do what they did, that they have overcome that and they have moved forward and found a different way to treat people and go through life and that they're not stuck in the same scenario. And I think when you let that go and put that out to the universe or whoever you pray to, out there, that, when you put that out there, it releases something that's just that bitterness and that anger that you have inside of you you just let it go. I'm not angry at all. And I should be so pissed. And I'm not angry at all. I just let it go.
Well, righteous anger is a beautiful feeling. It feels so good. But there's that wonderful quote that's like, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die.
100%. It's so true. And I think we can be caught, and you can't grow. While you're in that stage of bitterness and anger, there's no growth. So you're just sitting and marinating in it, percolating in it until it just, until it dilutes you to the point there's nothing left and you get to choose. And I think when we show ourselves, it's the most important thing. And then, getting rid of that trauma and things, it's just so freeing. And you just get to move through life then and just be more on the path. And I also believe that the universe has me exactly where I'm meant to be at any given moment in time. And so there's no bitterness.
Which is where exactly?
Going out for a surf in about half an hour after I've spoken to you.
Amazing. Elle, this has been extraordinary. I really needed this conversation. Thank you so much. The book is Before You Shake Hands. What's the best place people can follow you online to be alerted when the pre-orders come out?
Yes, Ryan, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to share this with you as well. The website is Elle George, ELLEGEORGE.com. And the Instagram is the.ellegeorge on Instagram, and it will be on Amazon, and it's called Before You Shake Hands.
Tremendous. Thank you so much, Elle.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out AIforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show.